Welcome back to our channel where we tell you the unvarnished truth about our Pretty Swell adventures with our Beneteau Antares 11 fly. After missing all of last season and with the excitement of the winter season Seakeeper install behind us, we're finally off on our first voyage. Our local marina puts together a flotilla that goes to Nantucket before the summer season really kicks off there. So it's a decently long trip of several hours through the Nantucket Sound where the waters can be, well, let's say spicy. Nevertheless, we decided to join this excursion for several reasons. First, it's my first time piloting this boat myself through Woods Hole, which is not to be trifled with, and being able to follow an experienced captain was a great assurance to me. Second, it would be nice to get to know our fellow boaters in our marina. So off we went on our first adventure to learn about cruising with Pretty Swell.
Mixed opinion on the little platform out front of the anchor. It definitely makes it hard to see the horizon while you're boating along. I almost wish I hadn't gotten it. I'm not sure I'm ever going to need to get out in front of that anchor that often. Let's see how that goes. Here's a interesting thing for our first voyage. We're in pea soup fog. Ooh, baby. We knew there was some risk of some patchy fog, but this one can go on for about 10 minutes. We'll see how long it lasts.
One of the evenings was fairly breezy while we were having nibbles and wine with fellow cruisers, so we had our first chance to use the rear enclosure. It's awesome, sheltering you from the wind, yet still leaving you feeling like you're outside. Definitely worth ordering. Apologies for a little slow motion and freeze frame and voiceover here, but bear with me. I promise there's a lesson involved, and I just don't have enough video to fill the voiceover. You'll remember from my most recent video about the Seakeeper install that we discovered an unfastened wire in the generator inverter, and that the way we did the install kind of buried the inverter behind the Seakeeper. So we took the boat back to McDougall's to see if they could propose a solution for relocating the inverter so we could both get to the wire and make it serviceable in the future. After looking at it, they recommended we leave the inverter right where it was for now and only address the problem if we ever need more major work. So with some hesitation, I agreed. In the interim, McDougall's was able to find a service tech that had long enough arms and a body type that would allow them to get back to the inverter and reconnect the ground wire. On our next cruise, we learned something important about an Antares that's fairly unusual and important. This cruise took us right back to Nantucket with another flotilla organized by a local captain who has a great cruising blog at mybuzzardsbay.com. McDougall's suggested we simply depart from their marina after they finished working on the boat. It's 30 minutes closer to Nantucket, so we dropped cars in appropriate places for after our return and cruised from Falmouth.
Underway off to Nantucket. It's a beautiful morning. And this boat runs so well. We're sitting here running at 29 miles an hour, 4,500 RPM. Boat's running just fine on the water. Nice spray and wake. Looks very cool out back. What do you think, Judy?
This is pretty nice.
What is it?
Pretty swell.
It's pretty swell.
This is all about real owner stories, right? About what it means to own this boat? Well, real owner story. You already know we left from a non-normal marina. We have our boat into McDougall's for some repair, and he said, just leave from here. Great idea. It's closer to where we're going in Nantucket. But did we remember to get our shore power cables from the marina we're normally at? No, we didn't. So what happened? Here's what happened. Happily, the Nantucket Boat Basin Marina said they had a set of 30-amp power cables they could loan us to hook up while we were there. So we grabbed them and attempted to hook them up. Guess what? Look carefully at the little angled bit on the right-hand male prong of the connector on the boat, and compare the location to the angled prong on the slot on the female side of the shore power cable. The tabs are not on the same side of the blade. That shore power cable is the usual 125 volt 30 amp connector used on most US boats. In contrast, the Antares has a 125 volt 50 amp plug, which means that we weren't able to use the loaner cable from the marina. So what does that mean? That means we're running a generator for at least a day. We might cut our thing short and go home, or we're gonna run it for 2 days. We'll see. That's what happens when you forget your short power cables. They're not normal. Happily, the generator was working properly now and runs pretty darn quietly. Because the boats around us said they couldn't really hear it, the marina let us get away with running the generator during our stay, though we shut it off a fair bit to be sensitive to our neighbors. All in all, we learned a good lesson about our shore power, were a little awed by the big boats around us, and had a great second outing. Nantucket is a great destination, and we see now why it's so popular for boaters from all around.
If you end up with the Antares 11 flybridge, there's something you might want to do that I've now found after a couple of weeks of navigating the boat around. When you have a flybridge, you're going to end up with a Garmin display in both the bottom and the top. And you'll probably have AIS because that's what Garmin shows these days. AIS does a wonderful job of alerting you when there's another boat coming that you might have a collision with. However, since by default, both the bottom and the top displays may turn on your boat, when that AIS alarm goes off, you may shut it off down on the lower display, but it still is going to be going on the upper display. Shutting it off on the lower display does not turn it off on the upper display by default. In fact, I've found a couple of different alarms that go off on the lower display that I wish weren't going off on the upper display. I keep going up and turning off the upper display until I want to be up there on the flybridge. But there's a way to solve that. Let me show you how to do it from the lower display. When you're at your lower display, you can find a setting to make sure that only the lower display goes on by default. You hit the home, and then the settings button will appear over here in the corner. If you hit settings and go to system, there's an auto power up, and you can say this station only. And that means the upper display is not going to power up by default. That will mean that all those things that are going off up above aren't going to go off for you in terms of alarms. That's going to be an awesome thing. Do that.
Our third outing was to nearby Cuttyhunk Island at the end of the Elizabethan Islands chain extending southwest from Woods Hole, a transit of which is not necessary, happily. It's a well-loved destination amongst Cape Cod boaters. We arrived a bit pre-season, so this already quiet harbor provided a couple of lovely nights. It's the exact opposite of the full-on way of Nantucket. With just a couple of hundred homes and under 50 year-round residents, a small town hall, a school, and a museum, and a small little market that's only open for a couple of hours a couple of days a week, it's the perfect recovery after 2 trips to Nantucket. While there, we also had our first opportunities to go sit up on the flybridge in the evening. The first evening was gorgeous. The second was a little too windy to sit up there, but there's plenty of room downstairs for us and friends, and we still enjoyed a fabulous evening in the boat. These first 3 trips show us the versatility of this awesome boat. It's comfortable to cruise across decent-sized bodies of water like Nantucket Sound and nestle in, or at least mostly nestle in naturally with the big boats, yet it's small enough to tuck into a fabulous location like Cuttyhunk. Pretty Swell is now back at Cape Yachts for a 20-hour service after break-in. I'm also having a Starlink antenna installed along with a few other electronics upgrades, which I'll tell you more about in our next video, I'm sure. We hope you're enjoying real video stories by real Antares 11 owners here. Be sure to subscribe to get notified when we post future stories for you to learn more about this awesome boat. Thanks for watching.